I think I've thought about the whole forgive but don't forget concept for a long time, and I never wanted to have that mindset. I watched many people in my life say, oh, you can forgive, but don't let anyone do that to you again. And I watched them say they forgave and they were way past situations, but in reality, they were still hurt and grieving and resenting the other person for how they made them feel. I knew this approach wasn't right and I tried to avoid it, but what I did to avoid it wasn't healthy either. Unintentionally, I think I developed a forget but don't forgive mindset, which obviously is just as damaging. And maybe not in the moment, but definitely in the long run, since forgiveness has still naturally been given. I began hoping that if I let time heal wounds, if I push things away into the past, eventually the future would come, the pain would go away, and forgiveness would come more naturally because the pain wouldn't be such an initial obstacle anymore. And maybe there's a method to that madness. Maybe for people who have been hurt by others who are emotionally aware, can take accountability for their actions without being forced to, and can walk towards rebuilding a relationship naturally, maybe that works. But what's the likelihood that that's the reality of everyone that we have arguments with? Because the truth is, most of the people who hurt us aren't even aware that we were hurt because they're not mind readers. Most don't know how these things impact us deeply because they don't know the inner workings of our past traumas. Most don't know how to take accountability because they weren't really taught how to, and then most of us were raised by a generation who would laugh at the idea of putting your pride aside to genuinely apologize. And most can't understand how to rebuild these relationships because they're on survival mode, like get out before they can hurt you back kind of thing, because it's overwhelming to invest your time into someone who may just leave you anyway. And even for those who some of these things may not apply, at the end of the day, they're still just human. There's two sides to this. Either humans are the most intellectual and emotionally aware creatures on the planet, and we should be able to take responsibility for the power of our minds and learn how to grow and be more aware of ourselves, or we're just little baby brain humans who don't know the spiritual and moral complexities of the world, and there's nothing we can do besides realize our limitations and do our best to get by within them. And there has to be some middle ground, and the way I personally find the answers to a lot of these questions in this topic is spiritually. I have a hard time believing it's either of those two options completely. To me, there has to be a middle ground because yes, we are limited in our knowledge and we see that we were made in a pattern of growth, from our bones developing, our skin stretching, our brain creating new processing paths as we grow older. Shout out to that 25-year-old frontal lobe development. I feel like I just passed the checkpoint in a game or something, but while we are limited in knowledge, we also have to see biblically that God does call us to a higher standard than just instinct and survival. So in John 10:10, Jesus says he's come to make sure people have an abundant life, a life to the fullest, and I'm sure that does not include living with defensive patterns and feeling like others are not safe enough to be open and vulnerable with. In Genesis 1:26-28, God says he's made humans in his likeness, and that we are to rule over the sea, land, animals, everything in the world. And how are we to appropriately rule over anything when we're set in making harsh, inconsiderate decisions about the lives of these plants and animals? In many ways, in our current mindset, we aren't even fit to rule the earth in the respectable way I believe God intended. We take our responsibilities for this earth for granted, and I don't think we act like the ones that we were made in likeness of. I think there are plenty of verses that show our capacity in the Bible to do better, but why are we as humans always falling short? Well, maybe Romans 3:23 is right, and we all fall short. And maybe the verses talking about the curse of putting our trust in humans shows how important it is to remember that humans are just unreliable. And maybe Psalm 41:9 is even more relatable because it's the people that we think are the most reliable that end up being the least. To me, I think the Bible shows both sides, what we seem to be realistically capable of and are expected to do, but what we inevitably choose to do for whatever reasons that bring us back to the same place of hurting ourselves and others. But why? I don't know. I have no idea. We just make bad choices sometimes, and sometimes we hurt people unintentionally. Sometimes the fault isn't in our choices, but the other person's interpretations of it, because most stories, not all, but most are never really 100% one person's fault. Just look at how two people will explain their sides of the story and how from an outside perspective, you can kind of see both sides. And I think that's the key. It's so easy to see a better picture of forgiveness when I'm uninvolved because I have no skin in the game. I'm not hurt. I don't have to prove myself. I don't need an apology from the other person. But when I'm involved, I need reparations. I need emotional compensation. And it's because when it's you, it's different, right? But maybe that's the key to seeing forgiveness more easily. I think making a video like this is hard for me because there's still currently people in my life that I have forgiven for certain things they did, but it's hard because they continue to do more egregious acts that every time I say, wow, I can't believe it. And when am I gonna finally be like, oh yeah, no, I can believe it actually because they've shown me a pattern of this behavior. But there's a few factors to this that can make this a little more complicated. I was talking to a friend about this, and they said they used to believe chosen family was stronger than blood. But as she's grown up, her mindset has switched, and she's actually grown closer to her family, and it's kind of switched her back to, well, at the end of the day, all you have is your family. Now, while I can't necessarily relate, because I think a lot of my friends have shown me healthier relationships and patterns than some members of my family have, it is an important factor that family ties can complicate forgiveness. There's some genetic obligation, some evolutionary necessity to maintain your original community. I've had very close friends that I've made within the last 2 years, and I have friendships that began 15 years ago. Of course, I would want all these friendships to work, but if the same issue came between both lanes of friendships, it might be easier to forgive the friend I've known for longer because that person has maybe kind of entered a family kind of territory now, or I just can't imagine my world shifting to not include that person anymore that I've known for years. The nature of romantic relationships, the tendency to tell them the deepest parts of your life, intimate details of yourself you wouldn't usually share even to close friends. I mean, it's hard not to want to forgive someone that you've invested yourself so fully in. You don't want to start over, and sometimes you'd rather settle for love invested rather than love respected. I think one of the hardest aspects is seeing people hurt you repeatedly. And what's worse is when it's kind of not really balanced by good acts too, like when they hurt you so often, but they also show you in other instances that they love you to the best of their ability, I guess. Maybe not the furthest extent a person should love someone, but the best they can do right now at this time. And sometimes it's hard to completely fault them for that, especially if they haven't really had a good picture of love displayed for themselves either. And when all these complicated relationships enter and exit your life left and right, all you can do is wonder, how am I supposed to have the bandwidth to forgive all these people at all these times? Matthew 22:39 says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. I think even writing the script for this video and thinking about all these crazy relationships all over again, I'm still piecing things together and learning about what I need. Trying to listen to the Holy Spirit and seeing what He's telling me to do, since I am not speaking from a place of experience at all. Let me clarify, I have not forgiven a lot, but I'm documenting this part of my spiritual journey just to help those who are in this middle place with me. But one of the things Holy Spirit is revealing to me is that verse is so important in this topic. You wouldn't want to hold something over yourself forever. Nobody wants to think badly about themselves. If anything, most of us would do anything to see ourselves in high regard for just once. And I think we're so hard on ourselves that it becomes so normal and easy to be hard on others too. And no, I'm not saying to pity the wrongdoers in your life, because yeah, they need to take accountability and you do not need to cater to their feelings. But for me personally, I think intentionally trying to see myself as human and having grace for where I lack discipline or love or whatever helps me see that other people have those same thoughts about themselves too. Now, they may not be aware enough to see that it's affecting others, or they may not care enough to do anything about it, even if they do realize that. And that's when you do to them what you would want others to do to you. And only you know what that is. Whether it's right or wrong, all you know is what you need in this current moment, and what should be changed will with time. But for me right now, I would want somebody to give me the chance to know how I hurt them. I would rather they told me than kept me in the dark. I would want those with a belief system to pray that I see the wrong in my actions, or that those without a belief system would keep the hope that I would someday see it. I would want that person to protect themselves, even if that means developing healthy boundaries with me. And I would want them to be open to giving me another chance if I showed them that I understood the pain I caused them. So that's what I've got to do. Do unto others what you'd like done to yourself, and love others as you love yourself. I love myself enough to give myself the full picture. I love myself enough to not be biased and closed-minded. I love myself enough to step away from the situation and see how, if I was an outsider, how could I see both sides of the story? And if I truly couldn't see both sides and they were completely and utterly wrong, then I would tell them that, set the boundaries, and move forward in healing my heart. And I don't know what moving forward in my heart really means. I guess I'll see it when it comes, or maybe in hindsight after I actually do it, but who knows. But I'm sure it'll happen one day. I hope this video helps any of you little bears out there, spiritual or not, who listened to my ranting thoughts for this long. I hope you guys find your way into forgiving others and yourself this year too. Like this video if you believe you'll make good steps, even baby steps, this year to get closer to that, and comment if you've done it, and any techniques that worked for you and may help others find their way there too. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck, little bears.